Naturally, Marcy ends up crashing the car into a fire hydrant, though. And this is where things start getting weird. Steve is understandably upset about the accident, but then does eventually forgive her because, after all, it's just a car and she wasn't hurt, right? But then suddenly he's impotent.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking the next episode of Married with Children. Now, if you're enjoying these episodes or you just like Married with Children and enjoy consuming content about it, please consider subscribing and or following. Like the episode, comment, send us suggestions, questions, what have you to our email at info@therankpodcast.com. Also, please consider subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/therankpodcast. Now, today we're going to be ranking the 19th episode of the second season of Married with Children called Impo-Dent, written by Sandy Sprung and Marcy Vosberg and directed by Jerry Cohen. For any of our new listeners/watchers out there, to give you an idea of what the show is like, we start off with the potent notables, which are some interesting facts or tidbits about the episode or the series in general. Then we go into the episode overview, where we talk about the entire episode. Then we do the rank, where I rank the episode in 5 categories. The whole idea here is to figure out what is the best sitcom of all time. We take a series, we rank each episode, and the average rankings of that episode is the ranking for the series. Now, in this case, because this series has been out for, 40-something years, I'm not going to worry about spoilers. Spoilers are ahead, just so you know. But let's get into the episode, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So this episode aired February 28th, 1988. Married with Children went down a little bit from a 5.7 to a 5.3 rating. Still strong ratings, and it once again beat its lead-in Werewolf, and 21 Jump Street was still the highest performing Fox show. Now, the Winter Olympics were still going on ABC, but didn't win this time with a 17.2 rating. The other shows in direct competition with Married with Children were Murder, She Wrote on CBS, which had a 19.7, and My Two Dads on NBC, which had 14.4. So, I mean, it's getting killed, right? But I'm really curious when/if Married with Children starts making this an actual competition. As for the best show of the night, once again, 60 Minutes leads the way with a 20.5 rating. Now, it was a weak episode for Potent Notables, so here's the only other one I've got. David Faustino went to a crowded mall while wearing a shirt with the show's logo during the first season, and not even a single person came up and recognized him. So, there you go. All right, so those are the Potent Notables. Let's go on to the episode overview. We start off the episode in kind of a depressing way. The kids are fighting over finding scraps of food like Tang residue and a single cornflake. It's kind of disturbing. Peggy comes in the house having come back from a restaurant and stuffing her face. Marcy will show up soon after and not be the least unnerved by the kids fighting over a cornflake. She's going to make a comment about how Al could cook too. And while that's true, if Peggy is taking on the responsibility of feeding the children, it's pretty fucked up to use that money on just yourself. It feels like an abusive situation, if I'm being honest. But Al ends up taking them out for food, which was nice. Now, while they're gone, Peggy convinces Marcy to drive Steve's car. It's not his car, it's their car. This is the argument that Peggy is making. And I don't necessarily disagree with that sentiment. It does seem a bit ridiculous to have a car in a marriage that is off limits to one of the spouses. That being said, it's also not atypical to have a car that's for one and a car that's for the other. And often you don't drive the other person's car. I think it's the rule of not being allowed to drive it that put me on Marcy and Peg's side in this. Naturally, Marcy ends up crashing the car into a fire hydrant, though. And this is where things start getting weird. Steve is understandably upset about the accident, but then does eventually forgive her because, after all, it's just a car and she wasn't hurt, right? But then suddenly he's impotent.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Now, why do we know that? We know that because Marcy is inexplicably telling both Peggy and Al about it. I would get it if the joke had been she told Peggy and then told Peggy not to tell Al, and then Peggy just told Al immediately anyway. But why in the world would Marcy have told Al? It's just really stretching credulity here. This will eventually lead to Marcy needing Steve's hard dick so bad that she's going to ask Al for advice.
Wait, first of all, you're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
His advice? To become subservient to Steve and cater to his every whim. You know, be a woman. as Al says. This whole speech that he gives Marcy is pretty gross, and it's meant to be, but geez. Marcy calling him a pig definitely fit this time. A lot of times it feels more like Al's just playing a part, but in this, it actually felt kind of gross. Until the end, when we find out that he actually is just playing a part. Because after we see Steve being waited on hand and foot and Marcy kowtowing to him, we end up finding out that it was a plan cooked up by Al. Basically, the plan was to have Steve withhold sex from Marcy, which was difficult for Steve. He had to think of why Bruce Willis was a star to keep from getting an erection, which I thought was a good joke. And then Marcy would come to Al for advice, and Al would tell her to be dominated, essentially. Well, as absurd as this all is, the plan apparently worked to a T, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight as this episode comes to a close. So that's the whole episode. Let's see how it ranked.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then we have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh out loud, 1 point per laugh out loud, and that gets added to the score. Now, before I dive into the rankings, once again, I just want to say if you are enjoying this episode, please leave a like. It does really help us out. So to the first category, which is story, I gave story a 4. While I don't necessarily think the story is a particularly nice one, I do recognize that it is a decent one as far as arc and progression are concerned. It was a story that was fully encapsulated in the episode, which often doesn't happen successfully in sitcom episodes. So there you go. Good ranking for the story. So let's go to acting, which I gave a 4.25. It was just the main cast who have clearly gotten used to the roles, so the acting was pretty good in this episode. Amanda Bierce and David Faustino still seem hit or miss to me, but Amanda Bierce is better. So let's go to dialogue, which I gave a 4. I thought about going lower because it was awfully cringy, but I can't deny that it was funny. It got me several times, and the whole try to figure out why Bruce Willis is a star bit was a really good joke. There were other clever jokes as well, so I gotta give it to Sandy Sprung and Marcy Vosberg. Don't want to, not include her. So let's go to episode coherence. And this is where the score goes down a little bit because I gave that a 2. Does the story follow from beginning to end? Sure. I'm sorry, but why in the world would Marcy tell the Bundys about Steve's issues in the bedroom? And then especially, why would she go to Al for advice? The whole plan that Steve and Al have worked up seems to hinge on Marcy going to him for advice, which seems implausible. So why would Steve have agreed to this plan? That being said, I do enjoy the fact that they turned the whole withholding sex to get what you want thing around and present it as a tactic that men can use. It's unrealistic, but it's fun.
Sometimes it's realistic.
So let's go to the next one. Again, not the best score here, but character relatability, I gave a 2.25. I can relate to the ideas presented here, like how do I get my spouse to forgive me? Or what lengths would I go to get them interested in me again? It's really kind of stretching it. So that's it. Some kind of mixed rankings here, but if it's got a good laugh counter, it's definitely going to be in the top 3. And it does. It got me 19 times. So, what can I say? I guess I just really like Married with Children jokes. Anyway, this puts the episode total at a 35.5, which makes it a holy grail. Clearly showing how much the laugh counter can improve the rankings. Now for the series, the average is now at a 33, which keeps the series as an I'd watch it again. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a full list of our episode and series rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, review, and comment. And please consider supporting us on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast, where you'll get access to all of our archived episodes. And again, if you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like. It really does help us out, but I will leave you with this. Why was Steve so happy at first with Marcy telling everyone about his problem?
Well, why is that?
Because he thought she said he was important.
Okay, I'm waiting for the punchline.
Because Marcy is inexplicably... Oh no, sorry. So the rank is...
Is what?